Alrighty guys, so this is basically the first stage of what we're doing in preparing the pork belly. We've got a nice bit of pork belly there, got a bit of a chunk out of it, but that's okay. Now, this is a super duper important step. Do not skip this step. Ideally, you want to get your pork from the butcher where it hasn't been vac packed. That's not realistic the majority of the time. So what we're gonna do is we need to dry the skin out. Now this is super duper important. And how we do that is what I'll do, I'll take it out of its backpack. This was actually back sealed. And then what I'll actually do is I'll stick it into the fridge uncovered for at least overnight, sometimes longer if you need to. It really depends on the piece of pork. And how long it's been sitting in moisture for. So if it's been sitting in moisture from the butcher or from your local supermarket, you want to give yourself the best chance of getting it right and getting the skin nice and dry. Now, you can have a look here with the white streaks. That's the original color of the skin. And now you can see it's actually got this pinkish sort of hue to it. That's because it's dried out in the fridge overnight. You want to see that pinkish color. Once you've gone on and done that, what you want to do is get one of these. Now, a lot of you might have seen me refer to this as my fleshlight on previous videos. Obviously, you don't want to be using it as a fleshlight. My missus is raising her eyebrow to me, not sure what a fleshlight is. I'll have to explain that one to her later. So what we're going to do here, as you can see, it's got a bit of sticky tape on it. That's because we've used it so many times and basically destroyed it. You can get these from Amazon or eBay or Alibaba, or one of those places, for about between $3 and $7. Usually spend a little bit more and get a better quality one. This one was an El Cheapo one, and this one was only $3, but it does the job. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, second step after we've dried it out, is put as many holes in as we can. Now you actually can see it leaving big holes there. And now if I hadn't dried that skin out, you might notice that it's not gonna leave those holes as readily. Also, if I dried the skin out too much, you might find it extremely difficult to do this too, because it's actually dried out too much. So you want it sort of in the middle, usually about at least overnight, sometimes longer if you can do it. And you want as many of these tiny little bubbles as you can get into it. And the reason behind that is that if you've seen a lot of my photos, I personally reckon the smaller tiny bubbles create the best crackle. They'll give a totally different texture than something that hasn't got those tiny little bubbles. Okay. And get it all over. You want to see those little tiny bubbles all over. Okay, now once we've done that, spread that out. And what you want to do is get some apple cider vinegar. Lemon juice does the same trick. And you want to, only about a teaspoon, tablespoon, just depending on how big your pork belly is. And you want to rub that in and rub that on. And so what that's going to do is that's going to suck out even more moisture. So what we're going to do here is get some salt. This is regular cooking salt. What you can do is back your hand up to it like this, or actually do this in a tray. And it's just so it helps salt from not going all over the kitchen. Salt that quite heavily. Now the big thing in here is after you've done this, you don't want the moisture to collect on here. And so you're gonna have to make sure that this is dry after this stage again. And so the best way to do that is get yourself a roll of foil, and I'll show you that in a second. So what we're gonna do is just make sure, pat that all in, and that section's done, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do for the next stage. Alrighty guys, so we got the second stage of the cook now. Me not being all that organised today, I've forgotten the foil. And so what we're gonna do instead, just improvise. So some of you guys aren't gonna have some of these implements in the kitchen. For example, with the my fleshlight, my little pork poker thing, you can actually strap or some tape some skewers together and poke it like that. I've used a fork before. Just improvise, just make do. But making the little holes is really important. So what we're gonna do here is, I'll just pop this on. Instead of foil, you can roll up 2 bowls of foil, obviously depending on how big your piece of pork is. And so the whole idea behind this is what I'm gonna do is make it so that the any moisture that does collect from the salt and the vinegar drawing out from the skin, that will just run off. So anywhere where you're gonna have moisture, that's gonna be a problem for your crackle, because the crackle won't set, it needs to be dry. We've got to keep thinking about keeping a dry environment. So if you happen to do this in a barbecue or smoker, don't put a water pan. If you're doing it in the oven, which we're gonna be doing it, don't put it in a water pan either. So the whole idea is to have all the moisture drip off, and so we've got as dry a surface as we can. If we get to this stage, I'd recommend at least sort of 6 to 8 hours, if not overnight again for doing this. If we get to this next stage where we're going to be taking out the fridge again, and you still see that skin quite like it's got some moisture, you want to make sure that that's totally removed. So you're going to remove the salt, remove all the moisture, pat that down with a paper towel or whatever you've got, and make sure that's super duper dry. Now, in instances where it hasn't been dry, you can actually use, rather than putting it back in the fridge, if you're running out of time, you can actually use a hair dryer or something of that description where you can dry out the skin. But yeah, really important for supreme crackle, and that those super uber duper little tiny bubbles, you want to have super duper dry skin. Alrighty guys, so we've had a period when she's been drying out in the fridge. Now, if you can see there, I've actually changed the angle of the pork there. And what I've done, I've actually put some more salt on. It was starting to pool in certain bits, and so I didn't want that. So I've put some salt in, and that'll draw up the moisture. And I've actually, I've changed the angle of it so it wasn't sitting in the one spot. So you might have to do that mid fridge moment. And then, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this out. I'll get this out of the way now. Lose everything there. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna knock all that salt off. You can actually see there's still a bit of moisture there. So what you might want to do in this instance, if you see a bit of moisture there still, you're going to need to pat it dry for starters. But I'd actually recommend next time giving it a bit more time in the fridge. I'll just grab a bit more time in the fridge uncovered, or alternatively give it a bit more time in the fridge when you put the salt on. You can also, at the end, one thing you can do is you can hit it with a hairdryer and get it dried out a bit more, or you can stick it back in the fridge. But this step is really important to get it as dry as possible. You can leave a little bit of salt on, but get the majority of it off. But yeah, you just want to make sure that that skin is super dry now. I'm going to stick that back in the fridge for a moment, and we'll dry that out some more. So just have a look at that. So see, you can still see a little bit of moisture there. You want to make sure that's all completely dry and tickety-boo. Okay guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to season it. So just salt and pepper to start. And so what we're doing, the style we're doing today is what I'd call Siu Yuk, which is like an Asian style. So just a bit of salt there. Reasonable amount. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I've got some Chinese 5 spice there. Not sure if you can see that. Okay, so we're going to stick some of that on. And you just have to watch how heavy you go. Generally, you probably want about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, depending on the size of the piece of pork you've got. You don't want too much, but that's about right. And you want to pat that in. Now, really important, pat that in rather than rubbing it in. If you rub it, what you're going to notice is that you're going to actually have some clumps instead of it being a nice even spread. So here we go. Just some black pepper now. And what I'll quite often add to that as well is I'll quite often add some fresh garlic as well, and I'll often add, instead of fresh garlic, if you haven't got fresh garlic, garlic powder works really well as well. And so that's basically it there. So we'll go on to the cooking section next. Alrighty guys, now we're just going to pop it in the oven now. Now we're gonna actually run this with the grill to start off with. So you guys in the States call it a broiler, I think. So we're gonna grill it to start off with, and then we're gonna watch this baby crackle up really real nice. Now you may have to actually at some point stick it on an angle, and so that's where a bit of foil will come in handy. I've cut this in half just to make it a bit more manageable. But yeah, here we go. We're just gonna pop that in. If I can get it in. And there we go. And we'll come back in a little bit when she starts to crackle up. Alrighty guys, excuse if it's a bit noisy in the background. I've just had my 3-year-old come home. They just come home from playing. So we've just got, you see those bars at the top there? See how I arrange the pork? That's generally how you want to arrange the pork. So the bars are sort of going over the top of the pork. You can see some bubbles that are already formed there. If we're lucky, we might actually get to see some bubbles explode. But yeah, that's basically what you want. See how close it is to the grill as well. Now you may need to move that around from time to time. Just keep an eye on it. Now really importantly, you really need to keep an eye on it, because what will actually happen is if you turn your back, if you go watch the footy or something like that, you might actually see that she'll actually burn quite quickly. So we're about 5 to 6 minutes in. Depending on how hot your grill is, will depend on how quick it forms and gets these bubbles. But as you can see, these bubbles are going popping away, and that's what you want, those bubbles to form, because that's going to give you some serious crackle. Alrighty guys, so we're about 10-15 minutes in, and you can see, if you have a look closely there, look at all those bubbles. Now there's a tiny bit that I burnt out the back there. That's not too bad, but once she goes to a brownie color, and past brown, she'll start to taste bitter. Now I'll show you how to fix that at the end. Now you see this little bit over here, that's not crackled. Now if you tap that, you can see and you can feel that that isn't terribly crackled. So those red bits there still need a bit of crackling, but I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but you can hear that that sounds hollow, sorry. You can hear that sounds hollow. That's what you're looking for. Okay, that bit there is still soft, that bit there is hard. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. If you've got a bit like that, you want to put that under the grill, just sort of have it sitting there on the corner. See if I can grab a glove because this is quite hot. And have that just sitting in the corner there. So notice how, notice how the corner over there needs doing. So I'm going to pop that underneath there and sort of find where that section of the grill is. Sorry, it's hard doing this and filming at once. And you can sort of see under there, that corner matches up with where that red bar is. Okay, I might want to shuffle that over a bit, but yeah, you get the idea. Alrighty guys, so we're at a midpoint here. As you can see, now you want to get the crackle to about 90 to 95%. Try 95% crackled all over. You see there's a couple of red bits in there, but that'll come out, that's fine. You can see there's a bit of a bit that's actually touched the grill at the back there when I've been farting around with it. Now, yeah, I'll show you how to fix that at the end, but that's not a drama. We'll go on to the next stage. So what you want to do from here is lower her down a little bit, and you want to switch the oven on and have the oven sitting at about 160 degrees Celsius, or about 325 to 350 Fahrenheit. So about 160 to 180 Celsius, or about 325 to 350 Fahrenheit. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, we're finished here. There's all lots of tiny little bubbles in there if you can zoom in on that. But you can see there's a bit of a black bit there. Should be able to hear that hollow sound. that means you struck the jackpot. Now, as you can see, there's been a big bubble that's formed under here, so it's nice and hollow under there, but that black stuff needs to come off because that will be bitter. So if you ever see guys that have got that browny, blacky crackle, generally that means that they've burnt it, and burnt crackle tastes like crap. So what we're going to do is scrape that off. Just get a sharp serrated knife, and that'll basically come off really easily. And that's all you want to do then. And you can see just getting in those bits. So get all of it out, because it will make whatever you're eating taste bitter, and bitter's not good for this. You don't want that. Cool. Alrighty guys. Okay, so that's all beautiful. What we're going to do, what I recommend you guys do. In regards to scoring, I never score. I like it like this. I find that anytime you've got scoring, where you've got the scores, it's a different textured crackle, and sometimes it'll harden up because it's sitting in moisture all the time. But what we're going to do is the magic bit. We're going to slice this now. I always slice these upside down, and what you want to do is each time you want to make sure that that's in a dry section of board, because anytime you, listen to that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Would you look at that? That is sensational. Okay, so move that to the side. What you want to do, find a dry bit. Again, cut it upside down. You just have a much easier time of cutting it. And it should pop like that. Look at that. Juicy, moist, beautiful. Now, oh my God. Oh my God. That is wicked. Alright guys, excuse me, speaking with my mouth full. Thanks for watching. See us for our next video. It's going to be hot and spicy, deep fried chicken. Catch you then. Thank you.